Now, Ernst and Young recently released Global Hospitality Insights Top Thoughts for 2013. It's an annual outlook for the world hospitality industry. In it is highlighted several key trends likely to have an impact on hotel development, financing and operations over the next 12 months. Joining us from London to give us some detail on this report is Cartmell. He is the Hospitality and Leisure Sector Leader for Europe, Middle East, India and Africa. Hello, Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the report indicates that there's been a 54% year-on-year increase in hotel development investments in sub-Saharan Africa. What is driving this exponential growth?
I think there's three key reasons, the most substantial of which has been the real increase in GDP and growth, in particular in the sub-Saharan African region. This has been driven by the development of the natural resource sector locally, which in itself has therefore driven growth of the hotel sector. If you look to Nigeria itself, which is the 10th largest exporter now of oil, 26 new properties are in construction and another 17 will be built in the year ahead. And that most certainly is the major driver. In addition to that, with the development and growth of GDP, you're seeing an emerging middle class who will have aspirations to travel. Initially that is locally and then internationally. And thirdly, Africa has in itself a natural propensity to attract tourism. And while the economy has slowed, it has continued to grow, and therefore there is a natural growth of the hospitality sector.
Of course, Cameron, we've seen South Africa to a large extent dominating the amount of investment that is attracted through hotel development on the continent and capturing the lion's share of that investments. As other countries in Africa begin to develop their infrastructure and try to direct investment towards hotel development, are we likely to see new players emerging, and are we likely to see a changed landscape, if you will?
Yeah, no, I agree. South Africa itself has probably seen 45% of the transactional activity in the hotel sector in recent years. You know, the emergence of this growth of sub-Saharan Africa, the opportunity for hoteliers to invest will absolutely be the focus, I believe, of all the international hotel management companies and investors. You know, an investor in the hotel sector is looking to greatest return, and so you're going to be looking at those locations in Africa which provide the greatest opportunity to grow. And quite clearly the growth we're seeing in some of these leading countries through their exploitation of the resources will be those key locations.
Cameron, as the investors look for the greatest return, as you've indicated, what are the key factors that they're going to be considering before they decide on a location for investment?
Quite clearly growth, but I think that's we've already discussed. I think the other key ones are infrastructure. Infrastructure is key to enable a hospitality project and development of hospitality project. There is legal considerations, and I do know that certain African countries have legal restraints around the way in which an investor can enter, so it's really important those are understood, and also political stability. And I think that's probably more a perception risk, and certainly in certain key locations in sub-Saharan Africa, we're quite clearly seeing the stabilisation of the political environment. I think those three are key, and also an environment in which they can find the appropriate partners to partner with, who they can trust, as most of these operators and owners will want to enter a market with somebody who understands what's happening locally.
Of course, you touch on political stability as one of the key factors, and we know right now that there's quite a bit of turbulence in the northern part of the continent. Has this proven enough to deter investors from investing further in that part of the continent?
Most certainly it has to be a major consideration. If you look at Egypt quite clearly at the moment, and also historically in recent year, performance of the hotel industry has obviously been well under par, and so that will be a deterrent. People do want to have a level of stability in making an investment decision. They can't do that when the political environment is changing or changing rapidly. Having said that, although there may be some areas in North Africa where there are challenges, that naturally displaces tourists, the international tourists, wanting to find somewhere to go on vacation, and therefore you see certain other Northern African territories doing extremely well, and Morocco is outperforming its market for a number of months now, driven, I suspect, by the sort of relocation of some of that traffic.
Of course, we know that the economic situation in developed markets has been at best sluggish. How have big international brands responded to this economic downturn, and has this boded well for Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in particular?
Well, any major operator or investor is looking to make the right investment decision around where they want to spend their pounds. In Europe, the economic crisis and also a pricing differentiation between what a buyer and seller is looking for has meant that actually that market, the transaction market and investment market, has really been pretty stagnant. However, if you look at Africa, what do you have? An expanding, rapidly growing GDP. You have a market which is good value to enter into, low operating cost, so it's a great opportunity for the right investor willing to consider the right risks to enter. And so it is not surprising that you see the major operators looking to enter in quite substantially into the African market.
Thank you, Cameron. Cameron Cartmell, Ernst and Young, Hospitality and Leisure Sector Leader for Europe, Middle East, India and Africa. If you were to travel to the GPS coordinates 31 degrees, 59 minutes south, 29 degrees, 8 minutes east, you would be headed to the coastal village called Coffee Bay. Let's take a look.
"80 kilometers off the N2, at the end of a road with more potholes than tar, lies the seaside village of Coffee Bay, a jewel in the Wild Coast crown. Coffee Bay is a quaint town located on the Nenga River, meaning place of the whale in Xhosa, with a very small population, estimated at around 600 inhabitants, which swells over key holiday periods. The name Coffee Bay is bound to conjure up different memories for people whose lives have been touched by this remote resort village. For some, it is an enigmatic oasis on a hike through the aptly named Wild Coast. For others, it will be a carefree backpacker stay with definite overtones of illicit herbs. For some, it is a surfing destination second to none, renowned for the best waves in the area. And for some, it will be of a family holiday filled with fishing excursions, long days on the beaches, or day trips to places yet to be explored. Coffee Bay got its name from coffee bushes that grew after the cargo of coffee beans from a shipwreck in the late 1800s washed up on shore. The trees did not last long, but the name stuck. The landscape around Coffee Bay is unpredictable. Sheer cliffs rising out of the sea, interspersed with beautiful beaches that stretch for miles. It's at the heart of the Wild Coast, encapsulating the raw, unspoiled feel with little commercial activity that attracts many people wanting to get away from it all. This has been capitalized on by the tourism trade, with no less than 5 backpacker establishments, 3 in the town itself, catering to the local and international market wanting to get an untainted taste of this iconic Wild Coast, immerse themselves in the beauty of the area, or visit the numerous attractions in the area, including the iconic Hole in the Wall. More romantic, however, is the Xhosa legend, which tells of sea creatures resembling humans with flippers for hands and feet who once inhabited the area. One of these sea creatures fell in love with a beautiful young girl from a nearby village and tried to woo her. The villagers built a wall to keep them away, but they enlisted the help of a giant fish who battered his way through the wall of rock, letting the sea creatures in, who swept the young maiden away. Coffee Bay is as rural as it gets. Cattle and donkeys, simple mud huts and uncluttered lives. And the lure of the natural, untouched beauty that attracts explorers, adventurers and wary travelers seeking to escape the rat race. But Coffee Bay is not without its problems. The tarring of the road from Mthatha made it easily accessible to holidaymakers as well as tour buses that were beginning to service Coffee Bay. Tourism growth meant tourism jobs and a vibrant industry that supported the local communities. Tragically, the road that created the promise is now threatening the survival of this beautiful holiday town. Strewn with potholes that make the road unnavigable to all but the intrepid adventurer, the traffic that contributed to the tourism growth of this region and the resultant job creation is drying up. Plans are underway to rehabilitate the road, a vital step towards revitalizing the appeal of the Coffee Bay area, and we'll keep you informed of progress in this regard.